You have to stop. You have to stop. It is the end of Act 2, the part of the movie where you hit rock bottom and stay with your mom, or leave the country, or lock yourself in your apartment. You quit. You bottom out. You lose all inertia and just fucking stop. For a little while, you give up. It's not even a choice. It's just what follows when everything you've been doing fails. It's the part of the story where rock bottom happens. That's where it goes. And the first dramatic tension of Act 3 will be piecing yourself back together. You can't imagine what that could possibly look like, and that's okay, because right now, it's still Act 2. And all of this is lies, by the way, and that has to be okay too. Life doesn't actually have 3-act structures. You are not guaranteed a rally before triumph. This isn't truth. This is a choice. This is how you choose to look at things. Remember someone on a forum a while ago complaining about catharsis? That's not a thing that happens in real life, they said, and stories should stop pretending it does. But you were assigned Aristotle's Poetics in college, and you did read a little of it. And you know that's not what catharsis is. Stories give you catharsis because life doesn't. Art picks and chooses from life and remixes it into something that makes sense. Take a bunch of shit that happened and give it a beginning, middle, and end because that's the way our brains are wired. That's how our memory works. And the only way to pick out a lesson, get resolution, come to terms, is to write it that way. So you are writing this as the end of Act 2. You're looking for signs, and you will find them, but you are the author, not the universe. You narrativize the past, and that's how you write your future. You decide which things are plot relevant, what of all that is happening right now will be good exposition for the sequel. And so you have to stop, because it's that part of the story. And it sucks, because not doing all the shit you need to do is why you're bottoming out in the first place, is why everyone's disappointed in you, is why your labor hasn't sprouted a goddamn fruit in ages. And stopping ain't gonna make any of that better. But it doesn't matter, because you've seen this story 1,000 times, and this is the part where the protagonist stops. However hard it is to do nothing, however poorly you understand what that even looks like, before you can do anything, you have to do nothing. You have to. You don't have to like it. You don't have to deserve it. Probably by the end of this, you will have to believe you deserved it, but that's a problem for Act 3. Right now, it's just how the story goes. On day 1 of your partial program, a woman who a few days later will greet you with, "Morning, handsome," not in a flirty way, in a group mom kind of way, even though you know for a fact she is about your age. And you smiled for the first time in a week and said thank you and tried not to convince yourself she was talking to someone else. On day 1, she said a thing that you've heard before. Everyone's heard it before. It's a cliche, but just because it's a cliche don't mean you've been living by it. No is a complete sentence. And you, being you, thought, wasn't that a video game? The saying no simulator, Say No More? You looked it up, and it was 90% off right then, so you bought it for $1.50. You decided to play that game and meditate on the concept of saying no to things, because that is not a skill you have in abundance, but you are skilled at media analysis. You launched your career analyzing video games. That's a thing you know. And maybe you can put that skill in service of yourself for once, and not just your audience. You get why people vlog now, or why they used to. I mean, does anyone with the old hats still vlog? If you gotta make a video, and you gotta call the plumber, you make a video about calling the plumber. Like, yes, you just overcomplicated a simple chore, but you didn't overcomplicate making a video, and now you're doing one thing instead of 2, fewer plates to spin. And you're probably better at making videos than you are at doing housework, so maybe that's how people get better at doing housework. Maybe this is how you get better at saying no. You hate that the corny shit works. You hate that a fucking gratitude journal is scientifically proven to lower your cortisol levels. You hate that stroking your arms and patting your chest and running your knuckles down your fucking vagus nerve regulates the autonomic nervous system. You hate that it helps to hold a fucking squishmallow during a panic attack. You hate how much it works to go until you run out of breath, and you're just supposed to do that in the front seat of your parked car next to a bagel shop, and people are gonna walk by and see you? Really? Really? You hate that you're supposed to talk to your anger and welcome your panic and surf the wave of your anxiety instead of pushing them away, because then, and only then, can they not only be tolerable, but actually kind of productive instead of coming back concentrated like frozen fucking orange juice. You hate that getting sunlight matters so much, because apparently you're a dandelion. You hate that being around people, not even talking to them, not even people you know, just being in a public place is critically important because you're a homosocial mammal. Fuck homosociality, fuck mammals. You hate that you don't hate the sound of singing bowls. You hate that you're gonna follow the advice from this PHP handout that is written in fucking papyrus. You hate that you don't ride your bike even though you know it's good for your body and it's good for your brain, and you like riding your bike, because none of those seem like good enough reasons. You should be riding it to someplace, and there's nowhere you need to go on a bike. Everywhere you need to go is either a little too close or a little too far. So it's just covered in fucking spider webs, and the tires you paid to replace are going flat. You hate that making your bed every morning is an actually good idea, not least because it validates Jordan Peterson, and he hasn't earned that. You hate that this shit is not just self-rescue for when you're falling apart, but daily practices you're supposed to keep up after shit levels out. That not doing this shit is a warning sign that you have to ask, am I caring for my space? Have I been in the sun? Have I been around people? Because those are normal things to do. And if you haven't been doing them, that's not necessarily just like, your vibe, you're an introvert, but evidence that you're not doing well. And pointing out, oh, hey, hold up there. I've never done that shit consistently. That is not counter evidence. That is more evidence that you have not been doing well for some time. And that these are not responsibilities you should smack yourself into doing, but acts of self-love. And if you're not doing them, it's not because you're lazy, it's because you don't, right now, like yourself enough. So what? You're just supposed to keep doing this shit after it gets better every day for the rest of your goddamn life? The problem with mental health is it's fucking cringe. They say you should think about, and by they, we mean Tumblr, they say you should think about your negative self-talk like a pissy 9-year-old nephew in the backseat of your car. You named yours Trevor, and Tumblr says Trevor will say things like, you should drive into that telephone pole, and you're not going to do that. You don't take orders from 9-year-olds. But also, what are you going to do? Argue with him? He's 9. Just say, sure, Trevor, and keep driving. No, hold on a second. Do you realize every time you imagine Trevor in the backseat of your car, you picture the same road, a specific intersection 3 blocks from the house you grew up in a state you don't live in anymore? You know the exact telephone pole that Trevor wants you to drive into. You even picture the same weather every time, and you can deduce the season from it. It's early in the fall semester. You're driving the route your parents used to take you to school. It's bright and sunny, which means you just got through Indian summer and there's still enough sun to burn off the fog, but the air is getting cooler. The car you picture looks like the Honda your parents had before they got the station wagon, but it doesn't smell like the Honda. You hated that car, and you don't hate this one. I don't know, maybe Trevor does. And you chose the name Trevor because it's what your parents said they would have named you if they hadn't named you Ian. You don't have to like Trevor. You're stuck listening to this little shit all day, and that's exhausting. And yeah, he's just a kid, but he can hurt your feelings. Like, God, he's 9 and imaginary, and he hates you this much? But Trevor is your responsibility. He's acting up for a reason, and you have to take care of him. Sometimes Trevor gets very quiet. Like very, very quiet. And you'd think that would be nice, but it just becomes another thing you have to take care of. Turning on the radio, Trevor, do you like music? And you know he does, but no reaction. Handing him your phone, Trevor, do you like games? And you know he does, but not today. One time you took a very quiet Trevor to see Mission Impossible 4 because his parents are that cool, or maybe you didn't tell them. Let's not look too hard into the world building of this metaphor. This is Trevor, do you like action movies? And he's sitting there watching it, and he's engaging, if not really reacting, which seems better than nothing. But then there's that part. You remember that part? Like, that whole scene, you see Trevor's eyes widening. He's leaning just slightly forward in his seat. And then this. And Trevor just gives this involuntary... And that did something. That woke him up a bit. That involuntary amygdala response made him feel something for the first time in a week. And he was just a little more lively on the ride home. So, God bless action scenes is the message here, because the good ones, the really good ones, sometimes they make the sulky inner child who lives in your head have emotions against his will. Say No More is a 2021 game that started as a funny prototype about an intern using the word no the way Ken uses a shoryuken. The prototype was co-designed by Marius Winter, who A, still does most of the voice acting in the finished game, and B, is a treasure.
We are bound to one another.
Oh yeah? How?
We are brothers.
That's wild.
The game is light on mechanics. Chapters teach you different kinds of no's, ways to charge or prime your no, and it's unclear if these variations make any difference outside of a tiny handful of encounters. It's not the kind of game with strats, nor the kind where that matters. Most of the game is running down a superior who has stolen your lunchbox, a delicious and adorable meal that your friend/housemate made you, and you assert yourself all the fuck over everyone who gets between you and your sweat-earned nami-noms. But the real climax of the game is when you have to say no, not to a thieving boss, executive flunky, meddlesome coworker, but when you have to say no to the loved one who made you lunch. Your housemate is out of work and is asking you to cover rent for the 9th month in a row. Unlike every lunch stealer and their enabling cadre you've faced thus far, this is someone you actually care about, who actually cares about you, and who does kind of need your help, and whom you are kind of able to help right now, but also someone who is taking you for granted and is using your kindness as a non-depleting resource. You can't not say no to him because no is the only verb in the game. You have to. The game forces you to reject the person who made, with love, the game's MacGuffin. And it's powerful because after a momentary rejection, he thanks you. Because giving people what they ask for when it's not good for you creates distance. You can't be fully present when you're swallowing something. It frames boundaries as kind. At time of writing, you are a few weeks out from saying no to someone you love. You anticipated that they were going to ask you for something specific, and all day you told yourself, if they ask, you're going to say no. And the moment you got the text, immediately you started thinking, well, maybe it could be okay. Maybe saying yes will be better than you think. Maybe saying no will make things worse. Think how they will feel. You did finally say no. It took you half an hour of concentrated effort, and in case you've forgotten, they did not thank you. But what surprised you was, after another half hour, you were so fucking glad you said no. All the reasons you had to say yes to prioritize their feelings were irrelevant now. It was too late. The debate was over. All that was left was not having to do that thing. And wow! Is this what not swallowing things feels like? It never occurred to you that not giving people whatever they asked for could leave you anything but guilt-stricken. You were proud. And whether they liked it or not, you were present. And even though you were disappointing them, I think you were kind. It was okay to do that. You don't know how to rest. You know how to not work. Boy, do you know how to not work. But that's turning your phone off to conserve battery. Let's talk about plugging it in. Let's talk about somatics. You learned all this from a somatic therapist. We take no responsibility for whether the somatic therapist knows what she's talking about. Properly, anyone who talks about brains should precede every sentence with probably. You're not sure anyone knows how they work. Brains are too simple to understand their own complexity. Some of this may be purple hat therapy, but you did eye movement desensitization and reprocessing back when you had PTSD from getting your face broken in half, and it helped. Did you care what color the shrink's hat was? Somatic therapist says that a regulated nervous system is a nice, gentle sine wave between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, where up here is stress and frustration, and down here is calm and relaxation. Go too hot, you enter your fight or flight response. Go too low, you dip into your freeze response. A dysregulated nervous system jags sharply between extremes of fear, numbness, anxiety, depression, and rage, with very little time in the sweet spot between. Here are 5 things the body needs to decrease amplitude. If you need rest, go through this checklist and see what's missing. Food and sleep. Check your appetite. Are you getting protein? When's the last time you ate a fruit? If you haven't been sleeping well, you probably need to take it easy. Knock back a couple melatonin gummies before bed tonight. Read a book under a blanket. If food and sleep are not the issue lately, then a chill day of cooking and going to bed early will probably just make you antsy. Physical safety. Ain't shit to do with actual danger. Your stress response does not know the difference between being up on a deadline and being stalked by a bear. It speaks only in adrenaline. If you are anxious and need to convince your body that you're safe, you may need alone time, warmth, shelter, to be away from the things stressing you out, or to do something scary and watch yourself survive. Maybe watch a horror movie, or ride a roller coaster, or actually tell a waiter that you asked for no tomato like some kind of goddamn superhero. Body awareness. How do you feel? Where are you sore? Where are you carrying tension? What can you thwack with the S-cane? Are you warm? Are you cold, itchy, dehydrated? If you sit quietly for 3 entire minutes, what feeling burbles up from your guts? Just check in. Your body will tell you what it wants. Discharge trauma. Trauma, allegedly, can't simply be named and discussed. It has to be expended. Talk therapy is allegedly insufficient. Exposure therapy and allegedly EMDR and brain spotting are recommended. We remind you to never ask whether a placebo is a placebo. That's what makes it stop working. If old shit is coming up and a session with a trained exposure therapist is infeasible, there are brain spotting videos on YouTube. Community. There are a lot of ways to be around people. Have you been in public but not had enough one-on-one time? Have you called your bestie every week but not seen a human face-to-face that you don't live with in a month? Do you need a hug, or to be in a mosh pit, or to tell someone in another time zone that you love them? It is possible to post memes in the group chat too much, and also not enough. The Outs Season 1 is a web series about 2 20-something New York ex-boyfriends, Jack and Mitchell. You watch them attempt to put their lives back together after a breakup, learn what caused and precipitated the breakup, and see what it takes to eventually be okay with each other again. The Outs Season 2 is a few years later sequel that is better written, better shot, better acted, and has no real reason to exist. It's good, because it's more time with characters you like, but there's no hook, and not a lot actually happens. Una is dating a guy who works at her publishers, then she does a repeat of her breakup with Russell from season 1 where she dumps him because he's too nice, but then she gets back together with this guy because maybe she's ready for someone nice. Jack and Paul almost break up, but then Paul comes home from grad school to talk Jack out of it in an episode-long repeat of the scene in season 1 where Jack tries to break up with Paul and Paul says, "Bullshit, you like me, you're just freaking out," and both times he's right. So they once again do not break up. The only thing that actually happens in season 2 is Mitchell's life goes to shit. His housemate dies, he gets depressed, he starts smoking, he kisses his ex, his boyfriend dumps him, and he fucks off to his grandma's beach house, which is itself a redo of season 1 where he falls out with Una, loses his job, and gets locked out of his apartment in a single day. Properly, we should be talking about Mitchell in a video about flaming out. But we're going to talk about Paul. Scruffy. Your darling. You're pretty sure you saw Tommy Helleringer reading a book on a bench in New York one time and you didn't go up and say hi and you still regret it. What you admire about Paul is the confidence. Not bravado, just dude knows who he is. Season 1, Jack says, "I don't think I can do this," because he's still a mess after his breakup with Mitchell and he thinks he's a corrosive piece of shit and also a hot gay in his 20s in New York, and why should he do anything but hoe it up right now? And Paul clocks all of this, that mix of self-hatred and arrogance. And he looks at who Jack is in the time they've been seeing each other and says, "No. The toxic person you're describing, that is not you." And then in season 2, when Jack says, "I don't think I can do long distance anymore while you're in grad school," Paul, Scruffy, rushes home and spends all day talking to him, saying, "Honey, this person you're describing who can't handle the distance and doesn't feel hope for the future, that is not the person I've known. We've been doing it, and we don't have to do it much longer, and I think you're freaking out again." And he's not arrogant about it. Paul is not arrogant. But he's not manipulating his man into stuffing his doubts away. Paul is right. Jack is freaking out. And just how? How does he know? How does he trust himself in his relationship that much? You've had people say to you, the story you're telling isn't true, and they've been wrong, and they've been untrustworthy, and were getting you to stuff away doubts you should have listened to. And you've had people say, the story you're telling isn't true, and they've been right, and it's saved you. And you know what? It's never been the same people. So you got to ask, how does Paul, or any of them, how does anyone know which one they are? How do you know your story so well that someone you love can share some part of their story that just intersects yours, and you can tell from just that tiny overlap there's something wrong with it, that you can gently, respectfully disagree and know that you are trustworthy, that you are not some well-meaning prick steering them wrong? And how do you know when someone says that to you, you are hurting yourself with a false story, which one they are? The one you can trust or the one you shouldn't? There's also that bit in The Motion of Light and Water where Samuel R. Delany, yeah, fine, fuck you too, but you know what? Samuel R. Delany, now more than ever. There's this part where Chip Delaney is having what I guess you'd call a nervous breakdown, and he's suddenly very afraid of a lot of things. He's afraid of trains, and he just goes to the subway and sits at the top of the stairs watching trains come and go, gripping the railing to stop himself from jumping in front of one. And one day he's telling a friend about all these fears that have come out of nowhere, trains, but also intersections, and especially heights. And his friend just says, "Come with me." And he takes Chip Delaney by the hand, and he brings him up to the roof of the apartment building, and he walks him to the edge, and he says, "Feel how tight I'm holding you. I'm not going to let you fall." And they walk around the perimeter, and he lets Chip feel how secure he is, and he says, "You don't have to look over the edge. You can look at the sky if you want." And they go around the entire roof, and then go back inside. And Chip starts crying because it helped. Friend's name was Dave. How do you be Dave? How did Dave know that he was Dave? That was a safe thing to do? How did he know it wasn't going to make things worse? How do you be Dave or Paul for someone else And when a Dave or a Paul offers that to you, how do you know you can accept that this is a Dave or a Paul, and you can trust a Dave or a Paul? How do you know yourself well enough to know you can be trusted, that people can put their fears in your hands, that they can leap and you will catch them? How do you know who will and won't catch you? Is the trust that lets you do the one the same that lets you do the other? And if it is, can you be that guy for yourself? One consistent thing you realize in writing all this is the people who've steered you right have said it's wrong that you don't trust yourself. And the ones who steered you wrong have said it's wrong that you don't trust me. You almost never ask for help because a part of you thinks people will refuse you, and so long as you don't ask, you don't have to hear no, and then you can still believe, well, they might say yes if you just ask, which you won't. Let's assume you can work on that. Another part of you simply thinks you don't deserve to be helped. Let's assume that can be worked on as well. But get past both of those. Even on your good days, you don't ask for help because you don't know what to ask for. It's worse than that. You refuse help that is offered. People say, "What can I do?" And all you can think is, well, I'm dealing with a lot right now, so please be patient with me. Give me grace. Give me room to be a mess. And they'll give you exactly that, most of them anyway. So you get your patience, you get your grace, but then what? You don't know what to ask for next. And you've been dealing with a lot for years. People start to understand you need more than patience and grace. Years of patience and grace is just asking them to permanently lower their expectations. You ask your friend who's good at self-advocacy how they do it. How do they ask for what they want? How do they know how they should be treated and set boundaries accordingly? How do they trust that they deserve what they ask for? And they looked at you kind of quizzically and said, when I want something, when I need something, when I want to be treated or not treated a particular way, I want to find out if that's possible. It's literally being curious. It's wanting to know what's true. Is this something I can have? Is this someone I can hang with? Deserve doesn't come into it. I'm testing the state of the universe. I want to know what's possible given my current situation, and based on that, decide whether I want that situation to change. What you're trying to believe when people get frustrated with patience and grace is that it's because patience and grace for years on end isn't a real relationship. And when they offer you help, they want to actually help. They can tell you need more. And you have to trust that. You have to believe in an abundance. You need to ask for more from the people who are offering. And if you're wrong, if you trust them and they refuse you, now you know that about them. And that's probably something you should know. And that doesn't mean be cynical. That doesn't mean hold on to the expectation that they will reject you. That means it is safe to trust. Because if they let you down, you'll do something about it. Silver Linings Playbook is a movie you don't like very much. It's directed by a guy who made two of your favorite movies, sexually assaulted his own niece, and called Lily Tomlin a cunt. Fuck that guy. But his movie's on theme, so let's fucking talk about it. Silver Linings Playbook is about a bipolar guy recovering from a massive mental health episode after he caught his wife cheating on him. He's spent 8 months in a facility and now he's staying with his parents a while. He bonds with this woman who similarly crashed the fuck out after her husband died, and they talk about medications and being disasters, and they agree to do a dance competition together and are very clearly falling in love while he's ostensibly trying to get his wife back. You suspect what most people see when they watch this movie is a guy who tries therapy, and tries medication, and tries exercise, and tries self-help books, and tries leaning on his community, and tries new hobbies, and the thing that finally works is embracing the love of a good woman. Because that's how people think this shit goes when they haven't dealt with it themselves. Where what you see is a guy in therapy, taking his meds, getting exercise, reading books, leaning on his community, trying new hobbies, and falling in love. And it all matters. It is the aggregate that gets him through. No one piece bore the load, and probably no piece was expendable. It was the aggregate plus time. That takeaway is meaningful to you. It is also narratively undermined by his love interest doing none of that shit and getting the same happy ending thanks to the love of a good man, which is one reason people get the wrong idea and one reason you have trouble liking this movie. Also, the director's a fuck. But you can cleave the better message out of this because it's in there. And you can make something of it. 1. You don't do the job you do because it's fun. 2. Your job does have the capacity to be fun. 3. If you're going to do a job that's never fun, you might as well work in an office and at least get health insurance. At press time, your last publicly released video that was fun to make is 5 years old. You caught up with an old mentor recently, and she suggested throwing all the videos you remember being fun to make in a timeline and doing a video on what made them fun. This is your nearest approximation of that idea. You made a bunch of lists. A really basic observation: release dates. Your fun videos all came out between March 7th and September 29th. Your list of most grueling videos to make came out in October, January, February, and one outlier in June of 2024. We'll get to that. Your list of videos you would have expected to enjoy more given the subject matter came out in January, February, March, April, and August. The videos you made expressly to do something fun, which didn't end up being fun, came out in February, March, and that same outlier in June of 2024, which we'll get to, and one that was scrapped in the fall of 2024. The list of videos that weren't fun exactly, but you would expect them to be more grueling than they were given the subject matter, all came out in the fall. So let's just name that seasonal effectiveness is obviously a factor here. The outliers in 2024, well, you remember 2024. The average views for your most fun videos is half the average for your most miserable. If we lump all of Bringing Back What's Stolen as a single video, we're still short. Although, that is all due to We Don't Talk About Kenny being the third biggest video you've ever made. The other miserable to work on videos are among your biggest flops. What a great feeling! To know that putting yourself through hell will either pay off huge or be a massive professional waste of time. Either one would feel like shit, but you get both. Curiously absent from nearly all these lists is your flagship series. You can't remember ever having fun with the alt-right playbook. You didn't make that series because you wanted to, you made it because you needed to. It satisfied a completely different drive. And you did squeeze fun out of it. You would sneak in gags, try new animation tricks, go hard on little details just because you felt like it. And that was necessary to get through the heaviness of the subject. And the longer you worked on it, the more of that stuff you needed to do to get through, which made each video a bigger production. No individual entry was memorably awful to make, but taken as a whole, it nourished you for 3 years and killed you for 5. You can't place that on a fun, not fun spectrum. The fun videos were all gushing about something you loved, but so were the videos you thought would be fun and weren't. Almost all the fun videos came out after doing something difficult. Blood is Compulsory was supposed to be quick and fun, but it wasn't, so you followed it with Who Shot Guybrush Threepwood, which was. You did the Smash video and the second Who Shot Guybrush Threepwood after spending 4 months on Why Are You So Angry? Bringing Back What's Stolen was your first video after graduating from Mass Art. Who Shot Guybrush Threepwood 3 was your first after a breakup, and both followed 4 or 5 consecutive alt-right playbooks. You've been trying to repeat this for a couple of years, knowing you need a fun video to blow off steam, but none of them have worked. None blew off steam. Trying to gush about things you like has not proved rewarding. When did your videos get so complicated? Why is blowing off steam so much work? Most fun videos were excuses to deep dive, to info dump, to spend an entire summer reading esoteric narrative theory or watching action films. You haven't been able to do that lately. You keep outlining, starting scripts that do exactly that chart a path from A to B, snaking through a bunch of pet fixations, but you don't let it consume you like it did. You've been trying to multitask more, hyperfixate less. Hyperfixations produced all your fun videos and all your miserable ones. It seems reasonable. Don't fully submerge into things like you used to. Don't neglect everything else when you're hooked on a thing. And that's probably bad, right? Like, what are you saying? Don't submerge into a thing you love? Don't let yourself go too deep into the thing that makes you happy and is also your job, which pays the bills? Fucking let yourself go deep, fam. You're not a freelancer anymore. You're medicated for ADHD now. You don't need to worry that a hyperfocus is going to mean not changing out of your PJs for a week and forgetting to eat. You don't have to view your passions as a threat. There are responsible ways to give yourself over to the work. And maybe the work you need to make and the work you want to make don't have to be so separate. Maybe you can bring yourself some delight and work through the miseries in tandem. That's something I want for you. As an atheist, faith is not a central topic in your life. But do you remember Pastor Larry from back in the day when your parents still took you to church? He said faith isn't analogous to belief. Faith is analogous to trust. That when he says he has faith that his teenage daughter will make it home safe on a twisty drive through the mountains after dark, it's not that he knows the future, it's that he trusts her. Faith is not belief without proof, it's trust in things that can't be proved or disproven. Looked at that way, everyone lives with faith, even the ardently irreligious like yourself. Proof isn't much of a thing on human scales. Am I good at my job? Are my friends annoyed with me even when they say they're not? Is donating to charity morally good because it has some positive impact, or is that slacktivism that keeps you from doing real work? You can come up with frameworks for answering these questions, but especially as an atheist, you don't expect St. Peter to tell you the right answers at the end of it all. You just have to do your best and trust your judgment. The idea that things will get better is an act of faith. But the idea that things will never get better is also an act of faith. And since you're not religious and you try your best not to fuck with dogma, every act of faith for you is a choice. Remember that Radiohead song, A Reminder? It's only okay. Like, if we're talking OK Computer era B-sides, you'd much rather listen to How I Made My Millions. What a song! But the premise of A Reminder is Tom York writing about how he's okay at a time when he was okay, and asking his loved ones to play that song for him the next time he's freaking out. You wish you liked that song more because the premise of it is everything to you. I'm making this video for you because I need you to watch it the next time you're falling apart. I'm not going to say I'm okay right now. This is a little more aspirational than that. I am writing my way back to okay as we speak, but this is a document of how we did that. You spend so much of your life learning the same lessons again and again, and that's not a criticism. That's how it works. That's what life is. But I thought if we put some of it down, we can oil the gears of that process. So just remember, we've been here before, and we've made it out. And we've always made something out of it. And that doesn't make it okay to be back here. That doesn't make it good for you. Suffering doesn't make you better. Suffering is never worth it. But you can use it to make yourself better. I'm here to be that loved one and tell you that you can be okay again. Remember, if you haven't given up, that means some part inside you, some part that maybe you haven't heard from for a while, thinks you'll get through this. And that part can make you a little naive. It's the part that lets you think you'll remember things so you don't need to write them down, or that you can totally handle starting another project. But the part itself is not naive. It just believes in you. So if you're still not writing things down, still taking on too much, however infuriated you are with yourself, it means somewhere inside you, something is optimistic. Sorry, that's another Radiohead song. What a track! Remember to talk to that part. And know that you will never lose everything. Because you have me.